Hi, good evening. My name is Nicole Smith Scudder. I am your senior manager for the education of National Dentex, and welcome to the next level dentures in 3 appointments. This lecture will be presented by Jimmy Stegall, CDT, and we will begin shortly. And now I'd like to introduce tonight's guest lecturer, Jimmy Stegall, CDT, a dental industry operational management and technical guru with 4 decades of experience. Jimmy Stegall is also a clinical educator, trainer, and published author. His impressive career includes 35 years growing and leading a major dental lab in the Southeast, and in the past 7 years, he has presented more than 460 educational and training events on implant and prosthetic restorations. I think it's probably higher than that now, Jimmy, if I'm not mistaken.
Maybe. I quit counting.
Recently, the National Association of Dental Laboratories recognized Jimmy as their 2024 Excellence in Education Award winner, and his expertise as a thought leader, educator, and mentor has helped to advance cutting edge digital techniques in dental practices and laboratories across North America. Please help us welcome Jimmy Stegall.
That's a lot of words for just another redneck from South Carolina. But thank you, Nicole, and appreciate you having me again. Always a pleasure, and I do get excited about helping other folks get excited about digital dentures. So these are the things we're going to cover tonight, and we're going to move pretty quick because we want to make sure that we make it clear the key things that you need to know to be able to tackle this tomorrow in the office. And it really is that easy. So let's get right to it after we get through the final legal stuff of disclosures. And see, that's a QR code for my website in case you want to reach out to me, but we'll give you some more information later about that. All right. So one of the questions I always ask my live audiences is, what's your favorite thing about doing dentures? And it's funny. It's I've been asking it for years now, and it's the same thing. The number one answer in the country is nothing. And I think while funny, the reality is that these records are tough to do. It's got to be some of the most clinically challenging things to do in a dental office is to take a bite rim and a custom tray with border molding. So, nothing is our favorite thing about dentures. And, I think it's got to do with, patients, because I've had them look up at me. I've done a lot of chairside support for dentures and say, why did it take so long? Why did you have to keep coming back? Why couldn't you get it right? Those, it's tough to answer that, right? But the records are hard. So we have to fine tune. And typically it's at least six, typically 8 appointments to get that denture done. So when I went to work with Dentsply to start helping develop their digital denture workflow and then teaching and training on it, both technicians and dental offices, I started thinking, man, they have answered, not they, but overall digital denture workflows have answered almost all of the pain points that we have in the process. And I hope you'll see that as we get through this. I'm a fan, and when people say, "Are they really that good?" I hear things about them being weak and they break, and yeah, the first generation they did, and they weren't that great, and mills were better at the time. But today's generation of printed resins, they're awesome. But I'm not opposed to milled. Milled, I would just do digital because you're going to gain one major thing from digital dentures, and that's a fit. It's going to fit better, and we'll talk more a little bit about that. But we're going to use digital workflows, maybe a little analog mixed in. As you can tell here, I'm looking at an impression wash and an intraoral scanner, but mostly digital workflows to gain a fit of a denture to soft tissue we've never been able to achieve before. It's exciting. But we do have the strength, we have the aesthetics, and we're not worried about any of that anymore. But another big aspect of a digital denture is that if anything ever goes wrong or if you ever want to replicate it, it's a file. So it's easy for us to be able to pull that up and reprint that or remill that denture. And I promise you guys, you are going to do dentures in fewer appointments. I tell folks all the time, if I were to open another lab tomorrow and I'd start making digital dentures, and that's what I would do only because I'm so in love with the workflow, I would tell all my clients, I guarantee it, we are going to do this denture in 4 appointments or less. It's just I know now because, almost 8.5 years of doing this, the success we're going to have. So that'll be the big win. The fact that it's digital, the fact we got cool printers and all that stuff. I mean, I get that. And we're going to show you all that, guys. But here's what you need to walk away from tonight. You need to realize you are going to do dentures in fewer appointments with this workflow. And that's the big win for you. If you can deliver a denture in 3 appointments, sometimes even two, or at the most four, then think about all the time you've saved. Think about the patient satisfaction, those kind of things. So we're going to talk about, that fit and how we get there. We're going to talk about that digital record, right? And how many appointments and all of that. But we have to look at, where we are, and it's growing rapidly. I can tell you because I've trained a lot. I've trained over 300 labs in how to do these things. Um, but that's still not the majority. The majority of labs are still doing it the way that we all learned to do it, right? And this is the way we were all taught. It's the way probably most of you were taught. And we've talking about flames and a gazillion drawers of a gazillion teeth and, wax and really good skills on setting teeth and carving and festooning wax. And then taking that pretty creation and investing it properly. You watch this, and I show this to non-dental people, and I say, really, that's how y'all make teeth? Yeah, that's kind of, we've been doing it for almost 100 years. And it works. There's no doubt about it. We've made it work. We've advanced it. We probably, most of us would be injecting this acrylic instead of hand packing it now. But this is kind of the foundation of how dentures are made, have been made, and still a lot of them are made this way. And there's nothing wrong with it, but it comes with its problems. All those steps that we just saw create avenues of potential distortion. And so here's the whole key. If I ask people, what makes a denture stay in the mouth? The common answer is suction. Unless you're down the south, the common answer is denture adhesive. But that's funny, but it's true. Number one consumer product in dentistry is denture adhesive. This country spends over $2 billion a year on this stuff. And here's the reason why. If you look at that surface of that denture, that is a traditional acrylic processing denture, and that surface, in order for it to stay in the mouth, would need to be really, really intimate fit the tissue, right? Research has told us that you want to have intimacy of fit of about 100 microns. You want to have, I don't like the term suction. I like the term cohesion or adhesion. Drop of water, two pieces of glass. That's the way a denture is supposed to stay in, but you got to have room for that drop of water. And that's in a denture world, that's about 100 microns. And that would be ideal. If I could make that denture and have every square millimeter of that surface be exactly 100 microns away from the patient's tissue, then we know that denture would stay in, and it really wouldn't need an extended border. It really wouldn't need adhesive. It really wouldn't even need a post down. Intimacy of fit would give us that. The reality is we never achieve it. Let me say that again. I don't care how good we are as technicians. I don't care what the lab is using, what system, injection, what acrylic, how skilled, how experienced. We never achieve that 100 micron space over 100% of that denture. Now we'll get it in half the denture or 2/3 of the denture or 1/3 of the denture. It really depends on all the variables, but we never achieve it 100%. And that's been proven with almost every denture fit study made. So that's why the number one complaint is, I wish they stayed in better. That's why the number one product is adhesive. So that's what we've been dealing with, right? That's why we can't do what we want to do. We just aren't able to do it because of the technology that we've had and the materials that we've had. Now, you move to the digital world. Now we're going to digitize stuff, right? We still got to get records, right? So there could be an impression, there could be a scan, whatever, but we're going to digitize that data. And now in the virtual world, we're going to tell a computer, make part A, the tissue side, fit part B, right, the tissue side, to exactly 100 microns. And when you tell a computer to do something, that's exactly what it does. And then all I need is an output device that can recreate what we designed. And we have all those things today. So when I say to you that we're going to make this denture fit to exactly 100 microns all over the patient's surface of her tissue, that's what's going to happen. Because I know now that after making, this is not new anymore. One system alone is over 1 million arches, right? We aren't researching anymore. This is proven. We know this stuff works. And digital technology is just a tool. It's not intended to replace technicians or replace any skill sets. It just gives us another tool that we can choose or choose not to use to make something that we've always been making. Somebody still needs to know what a retromolar pad is and where to put everything when you're designing that denture. But at the end of the day, it's just somebody designing or creating a denture with a different tool. But the technology is fascinating. It's marvelous. It's wonderful. It looks good. But it's changed the way labs are operating. There's no doubt about that. But that's good because it's efficient, it's repeatable, and best of all, it's trainable because that's our biggest challenge is finding people. So that's the big difference. A digital fit. That's what you'll notice. You could hold the denture in your hand, and I would defy most people to look at the dentures that NDX is using, loose stone digital print. You can't tell them from the dentures we've always been doing. And but I encourage you, if you ever have an opportunity to go and see, watch the guys, watch them design it, watch them print it, watch them mill it. Mill is where we started with digital. We're still milling some, but printing has kind of moved in. And the reason being is that milling is a less efficient workflow. It just takes longer. It takes about 2 hours at best to mill one denture. And in 2 hours, I can print 10 on a desktop printer. So it's a much more efficient but it's a known entity, right? That puck, these milled dentures are the same acrylic we've always used, but they're pre-processed somewhere under heat and pressure. So there's no more shrinkage, no more monomer release, but I've got to design the denture and I've got to mill it out of that puck. And then I've got to create the teeth, whether I mill or print those, and I got to load it together. And so there's a lot more hands-on time. So it's a much more expensive process because of the time and the material cost. But it works. It's great. I have no problems with mill. I teach mill dentures quite often. A smaller lab, an individual practice that might have a five-axis mill, it's a doable thing. But I think everybody knows that we're going to be printing everything one day. Milled is reductive technology. We take something, we cut it down to something else. And printing is additive. We take nothing and turn it into something, and we pour a bottle of goop in a printer, and boom, we get a base, we get some teeth, we glue them together, and we have the same net result. Now, the first generation materials didn't look like we wanted them to look, and they certainly did not last. And these things are still around. So, there are people that are doing these, and then they say, wow, this doesn't look as good as my old dentures. And we dropped it and it broke. I don't ever want to do a digital denture again. Just remember that you got to look at the specific material in the lab that's doing it. Gen 2, right? We've been there now for over 7.5 years. And these things are amazing. They have the strength, they have the aesthetics, they have the colors, we have everything we need. They can be done in so many different printers. And it's just pretty awesome to have, this latest generation of resins. This is the system that NDX is using, the Lucitone digital print. Everybody knows Dentsply, everybody knows Lucitone name. These guys did it right. Only fully FDA validated system on the market. I mean, everything, all the materials, all the printers, all the steps in the workflow. They put a lot of effort. Boston University did all this work. So, and there's not anything that a dentist can ask a lab, hey, can you make a denture for this, or can you make it like that? That this system doesn't have a solution for. So printed teeth, milled teeth, all the shades, it's great. And so this is, the system that we'll talk about, but you know, rednecks are going to test things the way we want to test things. So take an old acrylic denture and a loose stone digital print out in the parking lot, run over it with a truck a couple of times and see what happens. And, that's a pretty good test, right? But everybody says, well, nobody runs over their denture. They just drop them and they break. So, okay, let's toss them in a few sinks. So everywhere I go, I toss a denture in a sink, try to get a video of it, and they bounce a lot. Every once in a while, I'll chip a heel or a tooth or something, but they don't break very often. Now, in our lab, and when I was coming up, and we did about 100 dentures a day. So we would get a call once or twice a month that said, hey, patient took her new denture home and, the dog found it. So I've been giving the loose stone digital print dentures to Max for, God, 4 or 5 years now. And Max still has been unable to damage his denture. Probably not a real test. My granddaddy would say, no, Jimmy, that's not a real test because that's not a real dog. But Max is a good guy to hang around. Here we are in Boston. This is in the Instron. All right. I'm not sure why they did this without teeth, but I want you to watch how far this goes before it breaks. An acrylic denture, a normal acrylic, would break in the first few millimeters of that test. Acrylic is brittle. We know that. That doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's different. This material is going to give a whole lot more before it breaks. And all this means to you is fewer weekend calls, fewer repairs. But I know somebody's already thinking it. Yes, it's repairable. If we ever have to repair it, it's pretty easy to repair. So we have it all now. We have really good libraries, we have really good materials, really good technology with the printers and the mills, and we get the aesthetics and we get the strength, we get the durability. This resin is stronger than, it's the Boston test. I think that anti-fracture test of the base, it was 2 to 3 times stronger than acrylic. Right. Normal acrylic is around 1,000 joules per meter squared of force before it breaks. This one is 2 at best, or at worst, and 3 at best. 3,000 joules per meter squared before I can break a lower denture. That made me think all about my locator cases in the past that broke all the midline maxillary fractures. And, so I don't worry about the materials. They got to be done right. And so that's why you want to partner with a great lab like NDX. So, but let's talk about your world because this is where it all happens. And those records that we talked about earlier, this is our aggravating part, and this is what I'm going to give you some tools that we can move away from some of this and make your world a whole lot easier. Because none of us really like these things. They're hard to do, and there's not a lot of predictability in them. So, but this is what we learn in school, right? That we're supposed to do a denture in 5 appointments, right? There's these 5 visits and we're done. Well, I can tell you guys. And remember, I did 100 plus a day, and I was chairside a lot. And I can tell you that and we were a pretty good lab, but we didn't do many in 5. Occasionally we'd get lucky, but most of the time in my world, visit 4 became visit 4A and 4B and sometimes 4C, right? Before we got that right. And then sometimes even after that, after the patient signed off, we go back for delivery and delivered the final denture and they didn't like it, right? So a really good wax try-in never guarantees a solid delivery. With digital, that changes. Now, somebody out there may be thinking, do I have to go to? No, you can still stay in the analog world. Most labs are still doing it that way. Do I have to buy a scanner? No. If you want to do digital but don't want to have a scanner, all you have to do is send your normal records, those bite rims, those impressions, what models, whatever you do to the lab and say, hey, I want you to do the digital workflow. And they will digitize your records, right? And then from that point forward, it'll be digital workflow and you'll get all those benefits. But, we're going to talk about how you can move to digital with and without a scanner. The number one question everybody asks, can I just take my wand and wave it around in the mouth? Well, evidently, if you look at these pictures, you can see that yes, it can be done. And it can be done. And the scanners are better today than they were last year, and I imagine they'll be better next year as well. But I can tell you that still today, even with the current technology that's out there, this is the most difficult, most challenging scan to accomplish. If any of you have ever tried it with your IO scanner, you know what I'm talking about. It's doable, but it's hard. And most of the time, people get frustrated. And if you think about it, these scanners were designed to scan hard tissue. So if there's teeth or, say, implant scan posts in there, we get a better result. But if it's fully edentulous, right, if you start on one side and you go over to the other and you realize you missed a spot and you go back and that tissue has moved at all, you're taking a different picture. And so now our data is flawed. And you'll see that in layered scans. Reflection, saliva, pulling the cheek too hard, all those things go into play here. And so to summarize, I don't tell people to do it. I suggest that you not try it. I hate to say that you bought the technology. If you're gung ho, go try it. Just find a patient you can practice on and try it because obviously it can be done. But I don't see many people capable of doing it. You have to be a really good operator of the scanning, and every scanner is a little bit different and have their own nuances. I will say this, the research has been done. The last 2 generations, 3 generations maybe of scanners are accurate enough. Before that, we were worried about cross-arch accuracy. We just didn't think we could start on one side and go to the other side and have accuracy, and that would be for fixed or removable. But we don't worry about any of that now. We have that. The data, the research has been done. Now, this is the guy that you want to go follow or read or look up if you're interested in diving into this edentulous scanning. LaRusso has done most of the groundbreaking work on scanning edentulous tissue. He has done some of the coolest research. He's a professor at a dental school in Italy, and he is amazing. He's also probably one of the best scanners I've ever seen. Was at a course, and it was at a dental school, and he did a lecture, and I'm thinking, wow, looking at his pictures and his videos, we can scan soft tissue now. It's pretty easy. He's making it look really easy. but they had lined up patients in the student clinic for all 30, 35 doctors to try, and nobody was able to accomplish one. So, and different scanners, six different scanners in there. LaRusso goes up and picks up three different ones and scans every patient. It's pretty incredible to watch him work. So, if you ever get a chance to go see him and you're interested in this workflow, but otherwise, just Google it. And he's got guides and all kind of things. He's even invented these retractors that kind of help answer our question: how do we hold everything in the right position so that we get an accurate scan without pulling too hard? It still doesn't solve everything, but he's the guy that can help you. So this is the study, though, that got our attention about intraoral scanners. So this is just one of those denture fit studies. They've been in in our world forever. From when we switched from alginate to polysulfides, polyvinyl siloxanes, whatever. There's always a denture fit study, and what you'll see in most every denture fit study is that image on the left. And that means the green is good. The green is that 100 micron fit, and everything else means you're not. And that's pretty typical of a traditional impression, stone cast, and traditional acrylic processing. What we'd like to see is green, more coverage of green for that 100 microns. So the one on the far right is 100% digital. That means an intraoral scan, which is much better, but probably a very difficult scan to accomplish. And then the one in the middle has the most green, I think, shows the best fit of a denture. And it is a scan of a physical impression, uh, more specifically, a wash impression inside the patient's existing denture using an intraoral scanner. And so that caught all our attention. Wait, most of us can do a wash impression in an old denture pretty easily and take it out of the mouth and scan it with my wand. That's pretty easy too. And it really is. The cameras are really good at capturing that. So that's where this all started. We say, look, all you got to do is take the patient's existing denture. And we know that 6 to 8 out of every 10 denture patients in the chair have an old denture. And I don't care if it's worn out, doesn't fit worth the dong. It doesn't bother me, right? I'm going to get you to put a wash impression in it. We're going to take it out of the mouth and we're going to scan it. Now I'm going to show you how I like to do this wash impression to get the best records, but this is a very efficient workflow, right? It's easy to do. It's easy to take that wash, and these scanners, again, are pretty great at scanning these wash impressions. And then we just clean up the denture and give it back to the patient, right? We have the data we need. Very, very cool. So that's where our best results are coming from, and we're going to talk about that workflow, and it's called the reference denture workflow. Reference denture meaning we're going to take the patient's existing denture, we're going to do an impression wash in it, we're going to do a bite, and then we're going to take all that out of the mouth. We're going to scan it. Now we can scan the bite in the mouth, but we're going to take those impression washes first. So the most challenging part of this workflow is making sure that we get a good impression wash. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect. Think of this. When we do a wash impression in the patient's existing denture, think of it as your preliminary impression, your step one impression. You'll have a chance to do a final impression if you need to, but this is a preliminary impression. So if we have a little show through of the old denture, no problem. We just want good border capture with the impression material, and we want to make sure it's not too thick, right? We're not holding the bite open. So we'll go through each step, but in a nutshell, we're going to scan, we're going to wash it, we're going to take it out, we're going to scan it, we're going to send the scans to the lab, we're going to get back some sort of try-in or prototype, put it in the mouth. Does it fit? Are the teeth in the right spots? A bite right? If not, we're going to adjust it, and we're going to rescan it again and send that back to the lab, and they're going to do our final. So as little as 3 appointments, could be done in 2. We'll talk about that. But I'm going to go through the steps here and show you how I do it. You'll notice that I'm using heavy bodied around the border. Let me show you this video, and this video is going to be available to you. At the end, I'm going to give you a QR code, and it's going to take you to a Google Drive folder where all the videos and all the PDF resources I talk about tonight are going to be there for you. But this is a case that we did with Dr. DeCoke and from Chapel Hill. And this is a patient that had a set of dentures, not too bad. They didn't fit too great, but he was ready for an upgrade. He wanted a better fit, a little more aesthetics, a little brighter smile. So Dr. DeCoke's doing what good prosthodontists do, and is checking the occlusal plane, midline, checking the fit of everything. And then we're going to put some adhesive around the border of the denture, and we're going to take a heavy-bodied polyvinyl siloxane, and we're going to go in the mouth just around the border and do border molding movements. And there are, 8 or 10 different ways you can do this, but we want to do some sort of border molding movements until that sets up. And when that sets up, that really you know, jacks up the quality of our border impression. Because we're going to go right behind that with a light bodied wash, go back in the mouth, and do those border molding movements again. And again, the only challenge here is to make sure that we don't have too much, that we get the denture fully seated. And again, it's okay if we get a little bleed through. We're going to trim off the excess, and then we're going to get the bite right. So impression material are in these dentures, right? Now we're getting the bite. And you just take the bite eccentric. If you're going to open the bite, just tell the lab, look, I took the bite eccentric, but we want to open him up 1 millimeter or 2 millimeters. So then we take it out and we scan it. And it's just, it really, I can do this in about a minute and a half to 2 minutes with the prom scan. The Trios, most every scanner I've used, I can do this. Everyone's a little different, has its own nuances, but if you notice, we're scanning the buccal surface and the inside, the intaglio only. That's all you need. I need intaglio, I need the borders, and I need the buccal surface. I don't need anything else. I don't need the tongue side of the denture at all. It's okay if you get it, but I don't need it. And the bite, just like every other bite we do with our intraoral scanners, have the patient interdigitate and you scan the buccal surface. You can do that in the mouth or outside of the mouth. Again, that's just a minute clip of that video. It's about 15 minutes long, and you'll have a copy of it when we're done. So here it is in step by step. So, here are the patient's dentures. We're going to do a reference point, chin and nose dot, take that measurement, and that's our guide to make sure we got the dentures, fully seated. Heavy bodied around the border, go in the mouth, those border molding movements, come back, put the light bodied wash, do the border molding movements again. If we're doing a lower, do the same thing on the lower, and then we take the bite. And I like sticking them together with bite registration. It helps hold the dentures together. And we just want to make sure that we trim back any impression material from the buccal surfaces because we want our technicians to be able to see all the teeth because they're going to use that data, right, to set the new denture. So you think about that. That's data we've never had before in a denture setup. And you may say the patient really likes the shape of her teeth, but they need to be lighter. And could we maybe show 2 millimeters more length on the incisors? I can see where she is now, and I know exactly how to do that in the design software. So you can do that with your intraoral wand to send that data to the lab, or you could send those dentures to the lab, and the lab could scan them in about 15 minutes. Now, obviously, it's more efficient if you have an intraoral scanner and the patient won't have to be without their dentures at all. But if you have a local lab, go have the patient go by the lab with the wash impression and bite and just let the lab scan it and they'll clean it up and give it right back to the patient. But then the lab's going to take that data. So this bottom picture that you see, see if I can zoom it in. Yep. So the purple is the patient's existing denture and the white you see is my setup. So you can see that, and my whole goal here is that when we're doing a reference denture setup, is that, hey, if the patient was happy with the mold, and in this particular case, we wanted to show about 1 millimeter more length. So you can see my centrals are a little bit longer, but look at that wonderful data I have. This is like, paint by number set. I go in the library and I find the mold, the shape that her denture is, and I just bring that library in and I just position those teeth. And the goal is that when we print these dentures or mill these dentures and put them in the mouth, the patient's world's not rocked. There's not a whole lot of difference in their facial feel, their muscle, their lips. And, we want this to go smooth and comfortable for them. And, it's incredible. Patients, they never tell us that I wish my bite was, I wish I had better occlusal posterior anatomy stuff. They want them to look good. They want them to stay in. And, they don't want us to change them too much. So I'm cautious now about opening bites. We don't do that near as much as we used to because, some patients are more comfortable where they are. I have to tell you my grandfather's story one day, but this lady was a good example. This lady had been in Dr. Wagner's practice for 20 years. Dr. Wagner's in his 70s, prints all his own dentures, prosthodontist. In New Mexico, he's amazing, amazing guy. But this lady came in and her dentures were so worn out that he had to, kind of build up the heels and compound, but he did the heavy bodied, light bodied. But he had done a set for her 3 years previously that she wasn't wearing. This was a set he'd done for about 10, 12 years before. And she was wearing these because the 3-year-old set was a set where he opened the bite a couple of millimeters to try to, try to restore that vertical, which is our common, we all try to go that route. But I can tell you that, and she said it, I never really got comfortable. It came back for, I asked the assistant, how many times did she come back for adjustments with that set 3 years ago? She said 10 times. And I said, well, she's still here. That's a good sign. Yeah. So they love her. She loves them. And she just started wearing her old dentures again, but came in and, then Dr. Wagner knew that I have to take the bite where she is now. But because of this digital workflow and digital materials and designing, we have much better results in being able to fit stuff in tighter bites. So that's what he did, and it was great. But the scanning, remember again, intaglio, border, buccal surface. If you notice this picture here, this scan, I didn't scan the palatal side at all. It's fully open, and that's good. I don't need that data. So save your time. Save the, piling all those zeros and ones inside your scanner. And that makes it fast and quick. All that data is irrelevant for what we're doing. You can see that this one's powdered. The only time that I will powder an impression material before scanning it is if it's typically Impergum, which is a polyether and typically very shiny and reflective, but any shiny reflective impression material. But the one across the top is, I think that is, I think that's Aquasil. And it's a very matte finish, and I don't have to spray it at all. And that's typical. Most polyvinyls, we don't have to spray. But notice that we have trimmed it back, right? And so we want to see all the teeth. The buccal surface of the teeth need to be exposed for you to get a good bite registration, but the lab guy needs to see it too for that setup. But the bite scan, I like to go all the way around like that, not just one quadrant. That just makes sure that the balance is good. So you've sent the scans to the lab, and the lab's going to design those dentures using that data, and they're going to send some sort of prototype. Right, here's where the world gets a little different for you, right? This is where a printed try-in starts to raise eyebrows. A patient will look at this A2 colored denture and say to you, is that what my denture is going to look like? And we just need to be prepared for that answer. No, it's not. This is a test drive denture. This is about making sure the teeth in the right position and make sure it fits. And I can tell you that if you use a reference denture impression, you're going to notice the fit, right? We're going to put these prototypes in, and yeah, the question's going to be there about the color, but I don't, to me, it doesn't matter. I'd print them all out of A2, but some labs will put pink on it. Some labs go ahead and print the pink and white and just avoid that conversation altogether. But to me, the data we get out of this appointment is so much more valuable that what it's made out of at this point is irrelevant to me. Because we can put this in the mouth, and if we started with reference denture data, I can tell you now, guys, 3 or 4 out of 5 times, it's going to fit. You're not going to have a fit problem. The issues you're going to have, those 1 or 2 out of 5 times, it's going to be bite, maybe midline, but never say never. I mean, it could not fit. But this example, here's an upper and lower that the dentures fit great. The only thing, well, the bite was off a little bit. So guess what you have to do if the bite's off? When you see my words say modify as needed, you put these in and oh, they fit good, but oh, midline, whatever. Tap, tap, grind, grind. The same thing you do every day. Get your paper out, tap, tap, grind, grind. I don't care if you have to whack the whole teeth off the denture. It doesn't matter. Just take a new bite registration when you get it whacked to the right spot. With that new bite registration, regardless of what tooth is or isn't there, our scanner, our technologies, we can fix it, right? We know. And that's the beautiful part of this is that your first appointment was easy, wash impression and a denture. Your second appointment, you're not moving teeth in wax. I don't need a Bunsen burner. I don't need anything but a carbide e-cutter and some marking paper, right? That's it. And bite registration material. So I want you to watch this one. This was a very first case for a doc. It was a trial case, a trial project we were doing with the group. And, they're just tugging on this thing. And this is very common, I will tell you, with a digital denture, mill printed or otherwise, very, very common. My mistake is I always forget to record the patient's eyebrows and the dentist's eyebrows when they start tugging on these things because everybody is shocked. I promise you, if a patient has had a denture before that's not digital and they have a digital, they are going to notice that fit difference. It happens almost every single time. So here we are back with Dr. DeCoke's patient. We've made these prototypes. Yes, they're monolithic. We can talk about that, if we want to fix that. But here's the first thing she does. Indicator paste. We want to make sure they fit. The border's right. Yeah, they're good. Hey, let's check the bite. And so articulating paper. We got to tap, tap, grind, grind. Is my midline right? Is my occlusal plane right? Do I have any cant? Buccal quarter? All the things that we look at in our trying appointments. If they're not, you get out your e-cutter and you grind on it. You get out your Sharpie and you mark on it. You can get wax, composite, add to it. Draw the lines. If it's not showing enough cervical, just draw the line where it needs to be. But this is the beauty of our digital denture trying appointment. We're in a more comfort zone here when I have to deal with wax or moving teeth. It's different now. It is different, right? So that will be the learning curve. You have to figure out how to make this work for you, but it really is easy. The armamentarium is simpler. The workflow is easier. And again, the process is we're going to check the fit first. If it doesn't fit, right? If we do have a bad fit, then all we have to do is another wash impression. So you remember me saying earlier, your preliminary impression was in the patient's old denture, and here's your final impression. If it's a close fit, then I just do a light bodied wash. There's no sense in doing the border molding. But if the borders are way off, you might want to go back and do the heavy bodied border molding again. After we have the impression material in, if needed, or if not, we check in tooth, cants, midlines, buccal quarter, cervical margin, all those things that we want to know for aesthetics. And then is the bite right? If it's not, then we grind it down. So think of these prototype dentures. They could be white, they could be pink and white, whatever. This is the best set of wax rims you've ever had. This is the best set of custom trays you've ever had. They got teeth on them. Right? And the teeth are in pretty close position to where the patient was before, so it becomes a much easier second appointment now. And at worst, you're going to take two new wash impressions and a bite registration. At worst, again, reference dentures, most of the time, maybe a bite registration, maybe a midline adjustment, whatever. So, like I said, when I started with Dentsply, I started looking at all this, I realized, have we just potentially eliminated bite rims and custom trays? Maybe. Maybe. I think in a lot of the times we can get the data we need without having to deal with those darn things, which is, I think, great for all of us. And so we do this as a three appointment thing. Now, sometimes we will say to the patient, look, why don't you take these prototypes home and wear them for a couple of days and then come back? And that's the beauty of the materials that NDX is using. They can wear them for 3 years if they want to. It's that kind of permanent resin. But that way it can settle in, have some meals, talk to family, those kind of things, and then come back. And then that makes it a 4 appointment denture. But once you have the changes, again, whether it's impression, bite, combination, the lab can scan it, you can scan it, and then the lab takes these really cool softwares and it says, oh, here's where you are now. I can see that you ground the teeth. I can see you took an impression. Would you like me to go get your original setup and bring it into this new data? I would tell the computer, yes, please. And that's what it does. It helps us get everything reoriented to the new bite data that you gave us. And this intelligence is incredible to me. It never ceases to amaze me. And we just go in right here and fine tune it, double check it, do some equilibration digitally, and make sure that we're all hunky dory. This particular case, the upper was great. So just one final check, and we can now go to final. We'll go print this denture, and we don't have to do another prototype. And I've only done two second prototypes in 7 years. And it was because we started with virtually non-existent data. And think a dentulous patient, no denture, no teeth, mush bite, right? So we made a prototype, wasn't anywhere near close, so we decided to make a second prototype. Doesn't happen often, but we can do that. So that's the reference denture. That's your heart and soul. That's going to be 6 to 8 out of every 10 patients that you have. But I know people are thinking, right? What about this guy, right? He shows up, no teeth, no denture. How do we handle him? Well, there's some analog work here, but I'm going to give you alternatively when I finish this walkthrough, an alternative to this analog bite rim. But let me give you the foundation first, right? So comes in, we got to have a record. I got to have something, right? And so it can be an alginate, right? It's an alginate substitute. Take that record. I don't need a bite. I just need to make two models to make a set of bite rims so that you can take a bite. And this is as old school as it gets. This is the way we've always done it, right? And it can be done this way. If you have one of those patients, right, you certainly can do the way you've always done it. But from this point forward, we are going to digitize it. Now, if you have an intraoral scanner, this is the one time that I say it's okay to get that scanner out and scan soft tissue. Because what I like to do with this data, and if you look closely at that upper and lower scan, it's not perfect. I would not want to make a set of final dentures on that scan, but what I will make on that scan is a set of base plates and bite rims. right? So we can design them in the computer, we can 3D print them, so it makes a much better base plate, fits better. I have more control over tissue stops, all those things. And then we just print those and then set our wax rims on that. So that's what we've done here. Right, so we have this base plate and this bite rim, and we're going to go in and we're going to take a heavy-bodied border impression, just like we did with the reference denture. Around the border, in the mouth, border molding movements. Let that set up. We're going to take it out, and we're going to put a light-bodied wash on top of that and go back in and do that border molding movements again. We're going to repeat the process on the lower. Then we'll put our wax rims together and start melting and carving and shaping the wax rims. That's the part we all hate, right? Because it's so difficult. But that's what we have to do here. If you're using wax rim, if you don't have any other resource, this is where you have to take your bite. But once you have it, right, what you just did in one appointment is upper and lower impression and bite in one appointment, right? We're not going to do a separate appointment. So the first appointment was either take alginate or take a scan of the soft tissue. The second appointment, you took your impressions and your bite. Now with the bite, I want midline, cuspid, size edge, all those things marked on the midline. We're going to go back to the lab, we're going to design, and we're going to print those same prototypes that we did a minute ago. So they're going to come back. Third appointment, we're going to put those prototypes in and go through the same thing I just described, right? Does it fit? Are the teeth in the right position? If not, make those adjustments. Maybe it's grinding the inside, taking a new wash. Maybe it's marking a new midline. Maybe it's grinding on the posterior, taking a new bite. But fourth appointment, we're delivering that. And we did this one in 4 appointments, and that's pretty common and it's pretty routine to do because, that second appointment is so important. And that bite rim, yeah, as aggravating as they are, but it's easier than the old workflow of taking impression so I can take an impression so I can take a bite, right? And we're in the fourth appointment before even putting teeth in wax. But this worked out great. Patient was ecstatic. Great patient. It was his seventh set of dentures in his life, and he said by far it's the best ones. He kept losing them. I said, "Why it's so seven?" So let me circle back to the beginning now, right? And because I know none of us are real comfortable with the bite rim, let me give you an alternative. And I came across this helping with a homeless clinic in North Carolina where, speed is of the essence, right? These people come in off the street and none of those folks have teeth. None of those folks have dentures. So we got to do something as quick as we can. And these guys started using these things called good fit trays. Now, good fit trays are thermoplastic impression trays that look like dentures. They come in 3 or 4 sizes, but we put them in hot water and they soften up. And so you soften them up and you mold them and you use those as your impression tray. And you should see, right, that now I'm talking reference denture again, right? I'm using a good fit tray as a reference denture for this person who has no teeth and no denture. And so it's soft plastic. Once you put it in hot water, trim it with scissors. It's only, coffee pot water. So I can put it in the mouth and you can get it molded around and, try different sizes. We can do it on a model. These things are awesome. Now they're not cheap, but to me, it's worth it because if you're looking ahead now, we are cutting out one whole appointment. This is something that at the homeless clinic is done in one day. Right. So guy comes in, we do this, right? We take that in the back, we design the dentures, we print the dentures and the guy's back on the street. It's pretty cool. Right. And so this is what it looks like. Pick the right tray, heat it up, trim it up, mold it in the mouth on a model if you've got a model, whatever. Border molding, right? Now it's reference denture work, right? Border molding, heavy bodied, light bodied, grind the bite. Now, teeth are going to interdigitate, but of course they're not matched to the patient, but it's small, medium, and large. Just find the right one and just grind them in till you get his vertical where you want it, right? And then make the notes about everything else, mark midlines, any kind of thing like that. Just think about it as a reference denture. It's an impression tray that's really cool with teeth. So there's everything we need. You can take that out of the mouth and scan it, send it to the lab, and the lab can do this, right? Make our prototype. And remember, this was appointment 1, and this is appointment 2. Now we're trying in our prototype on a guy who had no denture in the second appointment. Same thing, good fit. There's another set of these. I think they sold at Blue Sky Bio. I haven't tried those yet, but I don't care. Give me this every day, and we can do the no teeth, no denture patient in 3 appointments as well. And it's really much easier. And no bite rims, right? Immediates. If you have an intraoral scanner, you should do all your immediate patients digitally. You should never put impression material in an immediate denture patient ever again. The data is just too good, guys. It's scan the upper, scan the lower, scan the bite. send those 3 scans to the lab. That's all you need to do. What the lab's going to do is virtually extract those teeth, right? Because we've never had data making immediate dentures like this before, ever. You know how the workflow typically is. Algin impression, pour a model, whack those teeth off with a burr, and then make a denture. Well, here, right, we whack the teeth off, but do it virtually so the computer doesn't forget them. So as you can see here, here's me setting the denture, but those are the patient's extracted teeth. We turn them back on when we want to. We extract them, we set our denture, and then we turn the extracted teeth back on to make sure we have everything in the right place. This is data a lab guy has never had before in the immediate denture workflow. And it's so valuable that, UNC now has it embedded in their curriculum, right? Wendy Clark and I at Chapel Hill have not done an immediate denture traditionally in almost 4 years. It's only digital workflow for immediate dentures, guys. If you got that scanner, use it, because when there's teeth in the mouth, it's awesome. It's a great tool to have. This is a step I want to show you. Dr. DeCoke shared with me, and this is a tool that you can use to do these 2 appointment dentures. So let's just say this is a reference denture patient. And here's what I suggest. I want you to take a picture of every denture patient you're sending to a lab for digital denture. And when I say picture, I want 2 pictures. And if you notice, we're framed in chin to forehead, ear to ear. That's the frame you want. You don't want any further away. And the 2 pictures I want is high smile and relaxed lip. Whatever's in his mouth, natural teeth, bite rim, reference denture, whatever, that's the picture we want. And what we're going to do with that picture, or those 2 pictures, is we're going to bring them into our design software. So if you notice the picture on the right, there is our virtual setup inside this guy's smile. And if you look at that and say, wow, we're showing too much teeth, that's data. It's also very, very helpful, and what can really help shorten the appointments. Because when we send you that, right, the picture, do you agree, right? I need to move those teeth up a little bit, right? We're showing too much. And without this picture, we wouldn't not have had that data. So take those pictures, and you can see the bottom right result. Because we had that data, we were able to do that on the next appointment. And so the immediate denture workflow worked great for this guy. And so people do this differently, but I like to print the monolithic prototype try-in type denture and just paint pink on for immediates. It saves time. I don't have to glue teeth in the hole, and patients only going to be wearing it for 6, 8, 10 weeks anyway. And so I send these, and the surgeon or the prosthodontist extracts the teeth and delivers these with soft liner or tissue conditioner and lets the patient heal. But when the patient is fully healed, guess what they do? They take the soft liner out, and they put heavy bodied around the border and light bodied, and do border molding movements on both steps. So reference denture now. So it's just has a long healing period, but the data is going to be amazing. Other things that we see labs doing, partials. Yeah, if I told you that this pink stuff was 3 times stronger than the acrylic we've been using, wouldn't you want all your stay plates, flippers made out of it? So yeah, this is not flexible. This is acrylic partials. We can put wrought wire clasps on this, but it's just a stronger acrylic, and we can 3D print them. So yeah, that's being done a lot. Cast partials, if you have an intraoral scanner and there's teeth in the mouth, use it. Right? They make great tools when there's hard tissue, and a much easier scan to accomplish when you've got a tooth, tissue, tooth. The scanners can stitch all that data together. The more teeth, obviously, the easier that is, but I like using them for cast partials. This is relatively new. I mean, we've had flexible partials for a long time, and we've been doing some digitally, but mostly just digital design and maybe some milling. But most flexible partials up until in the past year have been like injected. This one, 3D printing, I think we're getting very, very close. There are 3 major players on the market. I have been fortunate to evaluate all 3, and I love all 3 of them. They print in an hour, right? We print or mill the teeth, we bond everything together, and it's just awesome. They polish well. I think that's our future. 3D printed flexible partials is very, very exciting. This is a case that my little test lab is in the back of my dentist office, and this is a case that he recently did, and it just worked fantastic for this guy. My mom's been wearing a flexible partial for 14 years. So as much as in the beginning, I said, these things will never last. They're never going to work. But again, can't say anything about my mom's 14-year-old Valplast. And I'm just more excited now that we're able to digitally create them and digitally print them. Copy dentures. This is a tool that the lab has. It's actually a button that says copy denture, and it'll get some. There's some terms confused, right? I'll have a doctor call say, "Hey, I want a copy denture, but I need you to make the teeth a little bit bigger mold, and I need you to change a bite on this side." And I said, "Well, doc, that's not a copy denture. That's a reference denture. You want a new denture, but we're going to use some existing data." When you go and you call the lab and say, "I want a copy denture," what you're telling the lab is that you want an exact replica of these patients' teeth. Now, we can take the inside and fix it, but the teeth are going to be exactly the same when we use the copy denture workflow. So for that patient that says, "Yeah, I'll take a new denture, but it's got to be exactly like this one," you got to know, right? Just like I do, there are patients that actually do that, right? I want it just like this, even with all these worn spots. You don't want cusp. No, 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 no. I want it just like this. They tried that before. I hated it. Okay, we can do it just like that. But then they'll say, "But can you make it fit better? Can you make it wider?" Yes, we can do that with the copy denture workflow. So just do an impression wash in that denture, but tell the lab you want a copy denture, and it'll be an exact replica. Heard it 1,000 times now. A patient puts it in the mouth, it feels just like mine, but it's staying in so much better. Can I use this one all the time? Yeah, it's better than yours. Use yours as a backup. So copy denture is a great tool when you practice. Every patient wants a backup. You should send a postcard to everybody in your chart with a denture and say, "Hey, you always wanted to back up. Boy, we have something for you. Come by. My staff will scan your denture with the intraoral wand, give you your denture back, and you can come back in 3 days and we'll have a really good, cool backup for you." Copy denture. Just remember that for reference denture, what I said, intaglio borders buckle, but for a copy denture, you do need to scan the whole denture. We need the whole, every aspect of it. That's the 360 scan. Implants, yeah, why not, right? If I said they were 3 times stronger than acrylic, why would I not want all of my locators, my desk lock, my conus to be made out of this stuff? All the pickup materials stick to it, so no real changes clinically. We're just going to make it out of some super strong stuff, and the accuracy of the fit is going to be great. Now, I still will put a strengthener in some of these if I don't have minimal space. This material needs to be a certain thickness to have that kind of strength. So usually 2.5 to 3.5 millimeters around the attachment. If I can't get that, then I'll probably put a strengthener in it. All the implant prototypes now are printed in my world, right? It's so easy and so accurate and so strong, right? The one that I use, again, 3,000 joules per meter squared. It's 3 times stronger than any acrylic I've ever done, and they don't break very often. But hey, if I'm doing an implant prototype for an all next case, I'm just printing two. It's just easy to copy and paste and print. And you get two, right? If something goes wrong, you got a backup. But these are great. They really, really cut down our delivery time. And so everyone that I've done with the dental school, you know, printed PMMA, multi-layer, static, there's the tri-end denture, you know, pickup material if we're putting cylinders in it, all the same. Okay, I really wanted to cover all that, and I really came close to not doing it all, but here we are. This QR code is your handout folder. So this will take you to a Google form, which will then automatically email you the link to the Google Drive folder, which is always shared with attendees of my class. And anytime I make additions or changes or updates, it's in there. So hang on to the link when you get the form filled out.